Hey guys, it's Jill with Pink Garden. In today's video, I want to talk to you about starting a garden. Growing your own fruits and vegetables or flowers is a wonderful thing, but it can be a little bit daunting if you don't know where to start. So I'm going to give you a few of my own little tips and tricks and things to consider before you begin. Things that I wish that I had known before I started along my journey. But one of the things that I really hope that you take away from this is that no one is perfect. No one knows everything. Even the so-called experts have all killed plants. We've all done it. We all continue to do it. The ecosystem is constantly changing. We all live in different parts of the world, and we have different types of soil, different climates, and things are forever changing. So we have to continue to grow right along with our plants. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get started with some of the questions that you all have had. The number one thing to consider, what do you want to grow? Do you want to grow fruit, vegetables, plants, or flowers? Or all of it? Whether it's vegetables or flowers, you want to pick plants that you love, that you are passionate about. And if it's vegetables and fruit, what do you eat? What do you use and incorporate into your diet? The next thing to consider is your light source. Most plants require full sun, especially vegetables. They will require 6+ hours of direct sunlight. There are some exceptions where some plants and flowers can grow in part or full shade, but most plants may require full direct sunlight for 6+ hours. So you have to consider where you will be growing your plants. The light source is key to the success of your plants. If planting outdoors, you want to look at the different parts of the day to see what the light source is like in your morning, afternoon, and evening light sources. The good thing is that most seed packets and plants come with a little bit of instruction and let you know what zone they grow best in. How much space do you have to grow in? So that is a big consideration. I started out growing for years in containers. I went from tiny small pots in windowsills when I was in college to this that you see behind me now. So I started really small for years and years, and I still have some of the containers that I was growing in. So you really have to think about your space. Do you have a big sprawling space? Do you only have a patio? Maybe you have a sun porch. Or you're in an apartment and you only have, like I used to have, a windowsill. So you really have to consider your space to determine what type of plants you will grow. Nowadays, there are so many options and you're not limited. If you're only growing indoors, for example, you can use a grow tower and you can grow vertically. You can also grow vertically outdoors. So you're not limited. So don't think that you are limited just because you're in a smaller space. There are options for you. There's even containers that you can grow on a countertop. So don't give up. That brings us to the soil. That's the good stuff. Well, in my case, it wasn't so good. I'm in Georgia and we have clay. It's one of the, I won't say the worst things to grow in, but it's very difficult to grow in. Ideally, roots like to have loose soil. They like to be free so that they can grow. And clay is very dense, is very compact, and it's a struggle for most plants to grow in clay soil. So what I have to do is I have to amend my soil if I'm growing in ground. So that is another thing to consider, is the type of native soil that you have if you're growing in ground. That's why I have garden beds, raised garden beds in the garden, and then I grow a lot of things also in containers. Now, root vegetables such as carrots, beets, potatoes, I like to grow those in ground. And what I have to do, because I have clay soil, is I really have to go in and amend that soil with compost and perlite, all of the different things that will help to aerate the soil and to really loosen up that soil. And I even have to add a little bit of sand to it as well to really aerate and really loosen that sand so that those root vegetables can really grow nice and deep and healthy. If your soil is not of the best conditions for growing, no worries. There are plenty of options. There are raised garden beds. You have metal garden beds. In this area, I have the in-ground beds where I have root vegetables. So you see potatoes here, asparagus. Here's the carrot bed. In each of these beds, I have amended the soil with compost, worm castings, a little bit of cocoa coir, fertilizer, as well as perlite, vermiculite, and a little bit of sand to help aerate the soil, which will allow the root vegetables to fully grow to their maturity. The great part about raised beds is that you can literally put the bed on top of bad soil, then fill the bed with great soil. I'm sure you know you have to water your plants. So what type of water source will you use? Will you manually water with a hose, a water can? Maybe an Oya or an automated irrigation system. So guys, some people actually like to water their plants by hand. It actually gives them, a little sense of peace and joy to walk around and water their plants. It also provides you time to inspect your plants, which brings us to another thing, the bugs. There are good bugs and there are not so good bugs, but they all make up our ecosystem. And we actually kind of need them all, because if there are no bad bugs, then the good bugs have nothing to eat. Yeah. Take that ladybug, for example. Ladybugs eat aphids. As gardeners, we don't like aphids. Aphids eat up our plants. They suck the life out of your plant. But the ladybugs eat the aphids. The good guys versus the bad guys. It's a circle of life. Get to know your bugs. Certain plants will help to repel bugs. They won't kill the bugs, but they can help to either trap them or repel them. So the next thing you want to do is to select your plants. Regardless of whether you go to a big brand store or a local nursery garden center, make sure you select the healthiest plant possible. Inspect your plant. Look at it, inspect it. Also, another thing to consider when you're selecting your plants, look for a plant that has multiple stems that you can divide. This is a cucumber plant, and there are actually 3 plants. You get more for your money. Another way that you can get more for your money is by planting your own seeds. Consider that.
You can start seeds in the trays, in these grow cups. You can direct sow them in the ground. It's really up to you.
All right, guys, so to recap, we have gone over what you want to plant, where you want to plant it, or you can plant it, the type of light source, the watering, the bugs, the soil. Now the decision is up to you. What do you want to plant, and will you start? I will tell you what I tell my family and friends. Start small. Start small. Then continue to research, continue to learn, continue to grow your skills as a gardener. And I like to start with herbs. That's how I started. I started growing with herbs and things like cucumbers and tomatoes. I like to grow particularly cherry tomatoes, and I'll tell you why. You can grow larger tomatoes, but they're more, to me, indeterminate. And indeterminate means something that grows bushy and it produces only a few fruit for the season and then it's done. I like to grow cherry tomatoes, one, because my son likes little vegetables. Two, so we're growing what we like to eat. That was the key, growing what you like to eat. But then the indeterminate, especially with cherry tomatoes, it continues to produce over and over and over and over. My son also loves cucumbers. So cucumbers are super easy to grow and you can get a lot of bang for the buck and for your time. So again, consider what you want to grow. So I'm back inside. And why? Because when you garden, listen, when you garden, it starts outside, but it always ends up inside. Why? Because if we're growing fruits and vegetables, we bring them indoors to eat them. Even if you're growing flowers, we want to display them. We cut them and we may want to display them inside. So just to recap, what did we learn? We learned what we want. We have to think about what we want to grow, where we want to grow it, because we need to know our light source, the space that we have, we think about our whole lifestyle. Do we have time to water? Do we need things that require the least amount of watering because we don't have the time or the space? So all of those things to consider, the things that we like to eat, the things that we like to incorporate into our diet, things that you may need to incorporate into your diet. How about that? For your health reasons, you may have certain things that you need to incorporate into your diet, but always check with your physician first. Check with your doctor and make sure that you're taking and intaking and consuming things that are good for you, right? So we want to consider all of these things when we think about gardening. Now, the choice is up to you. But we don't end here because I'm still gardening, right? And I will be sharing everything that I'm doing. So I have little seedlings and I will be showing how I harden off my seedlings before I transplant them and all of the things that I do out in the garden. I also will, the next video will probably be on the design of how I started this particular garden. So I'll show the before and after of the design of the garden and why I chose certain things for the garden and the functions of the garden. But it is a work in progress. Let's be honest. It is a huge work in progress. I still have to paint the fence and the arbor, and the garden beds will be changing, not this season, but probably in the fall. We're changing the design of the garden beds. So you want to stay tuned for all of those things. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe, like this video, and hit that notification button so that you can be notified of the next video. And in speaking of which, I will see you all in the next one. But definitely, if you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. I always answer any questions that you all have.
And I appreciate you. Happy gardening, and I will see you in the next video.